It goes without saying that the Dot Hack franchise has, with the recent exception of Dot Hack GU Last Recode, suffered an agonizing defeat in the Americas and Europe, and today we're gonna explore a couple of options as to why that is. Welcome to the Pixelation Show, the only series on YouTube to tackle the questions on everyone's minds, such as, who is this guy and what is he going on about? I'm Pixelation, and in today's episode we'll once again be talking about the OG stuck in a video game story and a precursor to the isekai genre itself, Project Dot Hack. If you're new to the series, you may be interested in one of my previous videos where I discuss the basics of each entry in the series, which you can check out by clicking the card at the top of the screen. Project Dot Hack is a complicated topic to discuss as it's spread across games, anime, light novels, and manga, all of which is required to fully understand it. If you thought Kingdom Hearts was difficult for newcomers to jump into, you clearly haven't heard of Project Dot Hack. In Kingdom Hearts' defense, at least Square Enix had the common decency to compile past entries into collections that are easily accessible to most of the fanbase, which is something Bandai Namco games don't seem to be interested in doing for Project Dot Hack. In fact, from approximately 2007 to 2017, with a small exception in the form of an anime OVA series called Dot Hack Quantum, the franchise had vanished from the Americas and Europe. I wanted to find out what could have caused this, so I contacted Bandai Namco games themselves and, well, unsurprisingly they didn't reply. I also contacted Gen Fukunaga, the founder of Funimation, the license holder for most, if not all of the anime titles in the franchise, and he didn't reply either. I then tried to find evidence for the series' absence, but all I could find was Metacritic ratings for each game, which, believe it or not, actually helped to eliminate one possibility. If the answer was something as simple as, the series didn't sell well in the West, I would think the lowest critic rating would be much lower than Dot Hack GU Volume 1's score of 61. And if the answer was something like, the series wasn't well liked in the West, I would think there would be a much lower average user score than Last Recode's 7.8. I don't think either of those are the reason for the disappearing act the series performed in the later 2000s. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, so I did what anyone would do. I turned to Reddit. In lieu of evidence from Bandai Namco itself, I want to discuss a few theories the good people on r.hack suggested in an effort to make sense of this unfortunate mystery. I will further emphasize that the following are not confirmed, but given the facts, they are theories as to what happened to Project Dot Hack. I want to bring up my earlier comparison to Kingdom Hearts because there's no other way to illustrate how absurdly dense Project Dot Hack is. If there's ever been a series to infuriate players with its dense lore and complicated plot twists, it's Kingdom Hearts. But what if I told you the plot of Project Dot Hack is even more dense? I mean, think about it. There are only around 10 games in the Kingdom Hearts series. If you count the collections, it's 16. Most, if not all of the story is contained within these games. Compare that with Project Dot Hack's 11 plus games, 9 anime series and movies, 8 novel series, and 7 manga series, a lot of which are either impossible to obtain thanks to inflation because they've been discontinued, or both. I'm not even kidding. To buy the first game from the actual supplier, you're gonna shell out at least 79 buckaroos, and that's not counting shipping costs wherever you are in the world. If you then consider the fact that the first 4 titles in the series should have technically been one game, just to get the first complete story, you'll easily be paying around $605 give or take, and that's for a series released in the early 2000s on the PlayStation 2. It should be noted that if you go the used route, you'll spend a considerable amount less, but that's entirely your risk to take. I'll quote Reddit user has_question who said the following.
Look at Kingdom Hearts. It's got Final Fantasy and Disney characters, and even then some people just turn away the moment they get a glance at its convoluted story. Square Enix has played it smart by releasing bundles of all the games, but even then people are turned off from that kind of commitment. None of the games, none of them, are anything better than average at best. So if people want to go into Dot Hack, It wouldn't be for the gameplay. It has to be for the story. Thing is, the story is stretched across so much media that the average person would be instantly turned off. So CyberConnect 2 basically blew it in the long term by making average games tied to inaccessible stories, because neither the story nor the game attracts a lot of attention. The game part sucks, and the story is just uninviting. That huge world can be attractive in the moment, but now, 15 years later, people look at that, and they think it's just too much for them. I don't know how many times I've been asked how to get into .hack, only to see disappointment when I mention that part of the story is basically only found on old inaccessible games, and the other part is found in out-of-print light novels.
I can vouch for the point they made about commitment. An example that stands out to me is One Piece. I tried to watch the series from episode 1, and you want to know how far I got? I made it, give or take, 64 episodes. JoJo's? I'm struggling to start the 10th episode. I only made it as far as I did in the Monogatari series because it's an honestly fantastic anime, so there wasn't any difficulties catching up. It doesn't matter if your series has the greatest story of all time, if it's inaccessible to the average consumer, it might as well be invisible. I think, if this theory holds any water, they might be learning from past mistakes if the fact that .hackgu last recode is a real thing that exists. It doesn't change the fact that 90% of the series is still inaccessible, but it's better than nothing. If they were to release the first 4 games on modern consoles and PC, that'd definitely be a step in the right direction. I doubt they could, considering how poorly they've aged, but who knows what the future holds. On September 29th, 2005, Bandai and Namco formally became Namco Bandai Holdings, but it wasn't until early in the following year that Namco Bandai Games would be formed. If you notice, however, much of their modern titles bear a different brand, and this is because it's been known as Bandai Namco Entertainment since 2015. CyberConnect, on the other hand, has been around since 1996, but was restructured in 2001, undergoing its own name change in the process. Ever since, CyberConnect 2 has had a hand in most, if not all of the games in Project .hack, as well as several titles in the Naruto Ultimate Ninja and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series. It also looks as if they're responsible for the upcoming Dragon Ball Project Z for anyone who's excited about that. I say all of this in an effort to set up a theory that perhaps it's either company's fault we haven't seen more of a presence of Project .hack in the West. I couldn't find a specific source for this, but according to Gamasutra, in the premise of an interview with CyberConnect 2 president Hiroshi Matsuyama, he joked back in 2002 about how the project was their last chance to prove itself with Bandai. CC2 wasn't the most successful of game development studios, and so, according to the trademarks for many entries in the series, including .hack Versus and .hack Roots, the property is registered under, you guessed it, Namco Bandai Games, or in the case of the latter, just Bandai. So, is CyberConnect 2 responsible for the comatose state of their flagship franchise? No. Is it Bandai Namco's fault? I think that's a more likely possibility. It needs to be said that the first game in the series to not be localized was .hack Link, available only on the PlayStation Portable. Some could suggest that's the reason right there, but at the same time, there are other franchises such as Danganronpa that released first in Japan on PSP, only to receive a wider fanbase once it released in the West for the PlayStation Vita years later. If that series could make it work despite the odds, why couldn't Project .hack? I think it has a lot to do with Bandai Namco's willingness to translate a game with as much text as .hack Link had, and my proof comes from a post made on the .hackers forums back on April 7, 2011, by a user named Databug. According to Databug, they'd been speaking to a friend who worked at Bandai Namco about the series, and this is what they had to say.
Hi Jay, for the moment we're still thinking about it. Since there's a huge amount of text, we do not know if it's relevant for us to localize the game. However, we know that many fans are clamoring for the title.
It needs to be said that there's no way to know if Databug was telling the truth, or if this is just one of those "my uncle works for Nintendo" stories, but if it is real, it would make sense. In the era when .hack Link would release in Japan, Namco Bandai was in the midst of changing into a company desperate to pump out hits. In an annual report given to investors in 2010, they mentioned wanting to become a, quote, speedy group, and that
the biggest reason for the recent decline in our profitability is that we lost operational speed and ended up with a system that made it difficult to create hit products. From now on, we will give the highest priority to building a system that can generate hit products.
It wasn't in Namco Bandai's best interest to localize a game with such a niche following, even if most of the previous entries performed reasonably well. So, if it was Bandai Namco's fault, I fail to believe it was out of any kind of malice towards CyberConnect 2 or fans of Project.Hack. It was a move made to protect the brand, and if we fast forward to the present, we can see that it worked in their favor, considering they now regularly pump out games in the Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto franchises, which undoubtedly perform better than niche games like Project.Hack. .Hack GU Last Recode has sold over 300,000 copies worldwide in its first year, according to the official CyberConnect 2 Twitter account. Back in July of last year, CC2 went off about what needs to happen if we're to see more from the series.
We get a lot of requests regarding remakes, remasters, re-releases, etc. concerning the .Hack series, so here's our response. We at CyberConnect 2 have suggested many ideas to Bandai Namco Entertainment, the publisher, aka the client, in regards to the .Hack series in the past, and we still discuss these ideas with them today. However, in the end, the one who has the power to greenlight anything in regards to the .Hack series is Bandai Namco Entertainment. We appreciate your passion and love for the .Hack series, and we hear requests from tons of people every day. But in order for that passion to reach the people who have control over the future developments of the .Hack series, we ask for everyone to please send your requests directly to Bandai Namco Entertainment so they can hear what you have to say.
It's clear based on that CyberConnect 2 wants a new game in the series as much as we do, but the publisher, who also happens to be the owner of the trademark, needs to see us. So it then needs to be asked, if we were to get another game in the series, what should it be? It could be as simple as a remaster of the first 4 games in the vein of Last Recode, but then we'd need to consider the fact that they really haven't aged well comparatively. It could be that we demand a localization of .Hack Link on modern consoles, but it's been so long that I question if that's even the right move. I'd love to see the CG movie and Versus see a Western release, but the more I think about it, here's what I'd like to see personally. I think CyberConnect 2 should go back to square one and rebuild the franchise from the ground up. I think a lot could be gained by reapproaching the series with the vast advances in technology we've had since the early 2000s. I think there's a lot of potential for them to do what they did back then, just adapted to the current climate of the world. But instead of releasing the series in installments like they did with Infection, Mutation, Outbreak, and Quarantine, they need to just make a single game with a complete story from beginning to end, and most of all, make it good. I think they need to be aiming to release a game that'll do to Project.Hack what Persona 3 did for that franchise. If they can do that, they'll have dug the series out from its early grave and placed it among the greatest games in history, and no, I'm not joking. If Project.Hack is given a second chance to tell its story, it'll work a lot better now than it did the first time. I believe that. Thanks for watching the Pixelation Show. Woo! I won't lie, if you thought this was a long one, imagine what it was like scouring the web for information on a mostly dead series. I'd like to thank everyone who helped me allocate research for this video, as well as those who gave their opinions on this topic, including that .hack guy, has_question, BCM_00, casually noted, Dejuti, Kerubim, Lewis2611, and Conal S. Lopeter on the .hack subreddit. I'd also like to thank all of the voice actors that appeared in this video. I'll provide a long list of relevant links in the description below, including any sources I found and cited. If you want to see more content like this, please consider dropping a subscription and hitting that bell icon to be notified anytime I post new content. In the meantime, this has been Pixelation, reminding every single one of you to stay pixelated.